Hey everyone, welcome to AC Everything. My name is Squid. Today we're going to be talking about a variety of things, but the first thing I need to do is introduce you to one of our newest reptiles, newest pets in the house here at AC Everything. And this one, you remember we were actually supposed to do a unboxing video last Friday, I believe. Unfortunately, as I found out, and I probably should have realized on my own, when we went to order that reptile, about an hour after we ordered him, we got a message from the seller, I won't supply their name, that it is too cold to ship reptiles. Now, we are located in Ohio, so it's winter time. If you know anything about Ohio, you know it's probably going to be in the 30-degree area, and it's definitely too cold to ship reptiles, unfortunately. And that's probably something I should have realized on my own, but I guess I just wasn't thinking. But luckily, the reptile we are ordering is a reptile that is pretty popular and is very often sold at breeders locally and at pet stores and all over the place. So it's very easy to get your hands on one of these reptiles. And I have that reptile in my hand right now, and this is him right here. This is Natsu Dragneel. He's a Chinese water dragon, and he is very, very, very frightened. He's definitely out of his element right now. I tried to keep him calm. Probably had him in the house for about 5 days now. And I'm not trying to handle him too often for too high an amount of time, so I'm going to try and make this video as quick as possible, probably about 12 minutes as usual. And he's handling it pretty well. We just got him to, I'm sure he's been eating. We're feeding him mealworms right now, but we were just able to get him out and kind of feed him in person. I try to feed all my reptiles by hand. Of course, I use snake tongs, or feeding tongs, so they don't have the chance to bite me or anything like that, or associate my hand with food or anything like that anyway. So that's how I tend to feed all my reptiles, but I tend to take them out of their cages to feed them. You don't have to do that, and some people actually advocate against it because they think it helps the reptile associate your hand with food. That hasn't been my experience so far. So far, my reptiles have handled it just fine. My blue tongue, she absolutely loves being taken out to feed. She's very social. This little guy he's mellowing out, but you can definitely tell he's still very shy and very frightened, getting out to be fed like this and getting out to be handled and stuff. But you're going to have to do it eventually anyway, so I'm trying to handle him in 5-minute sessions here and there, and just kind of, trying to handle him here and there and help him get acclimated with it. Now, the biggest challenge I've seen so far, and honestly, it's not that big of a challenge because I face the same challenge with my blue tongue. She's a Maruki blue tongue skink. They actually need their humidity at about 80%, and these guys need it at about the same level. Chinese water dragons are swimmers, in fact. They will like to dive into the water off of high branches. They're arboreal lizards, so I got a big branch in his cage that he can climb on. But they're arboreal lizards, so they'll actually dive from branches on trees into the water to capture their prey. They're definitely really amazing reptiles. And the biggest thing about him that is very interesting, he is going to get bigger than either of the other two lizards I have. It doesn't seem like it because he's probably the smallest right now, I would say. His tail's pretty long, but other than that, overall average, he's probably the smallest one I got right now. Definitely smaller than Grandina, obviously. Grandina's a big girl. Of course, she's a blue-tongued skink, and she's definitely the biggest lizard I have right now, even as a baby, so that's something to keep in mind. This guy, but long-term, he's going to be the biggest out of the 3 lizards I have, which means we now have five animals in here. We won't be having any more until we move out. This is the last reptile we're going to get. Again, like I said, I was hoping to do an unboxing video, and unfortunately that didn't hash out. So, however, we do have a big announcement at the end of this video where we are going to have an unboxing video come to you within the next 2 weeks anyway. It won't be of a reptile, but it'll still be cool. And we're probably going to be doing that same video monthly. So, other than that, he's pretty easy to keep. But long term, this guy is going to get up to 3 feet. Females tend to stay around 2 feet, males around 3 feet. He's a male, obviously. And he's probably going to get up to 3 feet long term. They get pretty big jowls. They're probably like the best alternative to an iguana if you don't want to deal with the taming down of an iguana now. These still do require some taming down, just because lizards, period, or reptiles, period, require taming down. Basically, any animal besides a cat or a dog requires some taming down long term. But he's easier to tame down than an iguana. The biggest thing is these guys are not quite as social, well, as any other reptiles. They're very frightened, and you can tell he's pretty relaxed right now. He's not trying to go too far or anything like that. I'm trying to keep him as contained as possible, but he's very shy, so he might want to run away and go back in his cage. That's why I'm talking, like, I want to get this done as fast as possible because he's very frightened. But and there he goes. He's just jumping. So he's trying to jump. So I figured this would happen eventually. He's very frightened. You can tell. But today what we got to talk about, if I can get him to chill out. If I can't, we're going to go put him back. Today we're going to be talking about the Bengals. If I'm not much of a Bengals fan, I was raised in Cincinnati, and for a while I was. But if you know anything about the Bengals, which you probably do, you know about all the BS that Bengals fans have to put up with. Forget just the losing and stuff like that. I'm fine with that. I can deal with the team long term that loses. But here's the problem with the Bengals. And it took me forever to discover this. Really, my stepdad had been telling me for years, they're never going to get anywhere because they're not playing for fans. They're not playing for anybody but themselves. They're playing for their back pockets. I'm not talking about the players necessarily, although some people will argue that NFL players only care about money. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just Mike Brown, the front office, the ownership, and everything else. Those guys are what I'm talking about. Specifically Mike Brown. He's not trying to win a Super Bowl for the fans of the Cincinnati Bengals. Nothing like that. The only thing that guy is concerned with is his back pocket. That's it. Making as much money as possible. Going to the Super Bowl and all that stuff, that's extra money for him. So he doesn't want to spend the money to win a Super Bowl. That's just the facts. He's going to put together as good of a team as he can that'll get him to the playoffs, but that's it. He doesn't want to win a Super Bowl. This way he keeps the Bengals fans invested, but he doesn't have to shell out that extra money like I was talking about to win a Super Bowl or anything like that. So that's kind of the problem with the Bengals, honestly, and that's why I kind of moved on. I've been watching the Broncos for the past few years, especially since I got with my fiance. That's been my team, and I don't think that's going to change. Even though they've had a down year this year, they're about 5-9 right now, so they haven't been that good this year. But here's the thing with the Broncos, and even every other team basically but the Bengals. When they lose, they don't sit there and tell themselves, like, hey, we can just hash out everything just by having a decent draft or something like that, because that's what the Bengals tend to do. They'll do well in the draft, but that's it. And they don't re-sign any of the guys they need to re-sign. They never do. They let go of Andrew Whitworth and Kevin Zeitler. They've let go of Marvin Jones and Mohamed Sanu. Sometimes it's understandable, but if you have the money, which they always do, to re-sign these guys, just sign them. Stop wasting your time, because you're not going to find a guy in free agency or in the draft that's immediately ready to replace these guys. And that's what the Bengals are starting to discover now. But that's kind of why I especially after the 2015 playoff debacle when they were playing the Steelers and that big blow-up where they basically just handed the Steelers the game, that was basically the final nail in the coffin for me. Now, you might call me a fair-weather fan. I really don't care. I'm not here to debate that with you. But what we're going to discuss today is Marvin Lewis has basically said, hey, I'm leaving the Bengals. He's leaving the Bengals after this season. Now, the fact is, if he hadn't, he probably would have been fired, and that's probably why he's leaving anyway, to spare himself the trouble of dealing with the issues that can come with having, basically ruined your reputation by getting fired. Now, most coaches that get fired, unless they were just horribly bad, will get re-signed anyway by another team, and especially him. He's been with the Bengals for 15 seasons. There's been some good and some bads with him with the Bengals. He's not a horrible coach, but he's not good enough to be a head coach that's going to take you to the Super Bowl. And the reason for that, and the main reason I'm going to argue, is he's very bad at disciplining his players. The Bengals have been on record for having the biggest troublemakers in the league. Vontaze Burfict, Chris Henry. all the guys through history. Rest in peace, Chris Henry. I love the guy. He was actually a great player, and he was trying to fix himself up before he passed. So it was kind of a shame. It was really sad when he did, but you can look at it however you want. He's just not very good at disciplining his players, and he's made himself look so bad this season in terms of even being invested in the team's future. Talking about how it's not his job to motivate his players. It is, though. You're the head coach. That is your job. So that's kind of the issue that we're facing right now. Marvin Lewis he's not in the mindset he needs to be in to lead any team to a Super Bowl, and he's not a bad coach. He was a very good defensive coordinator for the Ravens, but he's just not a good head coach. And I thought it was only a matter of time before he got kicked to the curb anyway. Let's look at the statistics here. He's been with the Bengals for 15 seasons. He's the second longest tenured coach in the NFL currently, just shy of Bill Belichick, but let's compare there. Bill Belichick has won 5 Super Bowls with the Patriots in the past 15 years. Bill Belichick disciplines his players. He doesn't try to make dumb excuses, and he would never say it's not his job to motivate his players, although I don't see how he does considering how quiet he is, but he must do it pretty well because they're a good team. They always have been. So just based on that, now look at what Marvin Lewis has done in 15 years. Now, has he taken the Bengals back to relevance? Yes, he definitely has. He's made them relevant again, and that's good. But when you've been to the playoffs 7 times in the past 15 years and you lost 7 times in a row, in the first round, couldn't even get out of the first round, based on that alone, he probably should have been fired a couple years ago. Forget now, he probably should have been fired a while ago. So, of course, he's not getting fired. That's like I said, he's not getting fired. He's actually leaving by choice. And the reason I say he's probably leaving by choice, my guess is this guy is a troublemaker. He's very frightened, like I said, but to maintain his reputation. Now, some possible new head coaches for the Bengals. I've read a couple articles, and it tends to be the same with pretty much every single one. The biggest guy that comes up is Darren Simmons, which is actually their special teams coordinator and has been for the past 15 years. Basically, since Marvin Lewis came in, he was with the team. Darren Simmons, I don't know much about the guy. I'll give you a solid A+ on the level that he's been with the team for a long time. Another possible guy is Paul Gunther, who's been their defensive coordinator for the past 4 seasons and has done quite well. That's not a bad option. Again, he's been with the team for a while, and he's done a solid job in his tenure as defense coordinator. Some people are mentioning Hugh Jackson. I'm praying that that's not the case. He's a good offensive coordinator, but I don't think he's a good head coach. He failed in Oakland. Now, I can't blame Cleveland on him. When you just don't have the supplies to go very far, this is what's going to happen, but still. And number 4, and this is probably the best option in my opinion, is Josh McDaniels. If you don't know, he's the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. Has been for quite a while, and honestly, he probably could have left like 3 years ago to accept a head coaching job somewhere if he wanted to, but he stayed in New England probably to win, or probably just because he likes the position he's in, or he thought he needed more work. Now, that's the guy that would be my highest recommendation. And the problem is, a lot of teams are going to be on the market to go after Josh McDaniels, and I don't know if the Bengals are going to have the aggression they need to go out and get the guy. Anybody that's taken over this team is going to be in a pretty good spot right away. You may not necessarily get right to the playoffs, but you don't have to worry about having a crazy amount of losing seasons year after year. You have a good team, a good basic setup at first. So on that level, you have to consider that they're in a good position. But on the other hand, this team still has a long way to go. And the biggest problem, I think, with the Bengals, and I think that this is something that's going to need to be resolved pretty quickly, pretty obvious, Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback. The Bengals have fooled themselves into thinking he's the guy for the past, I think it's been 7 seasons, actually, 5 to 7 or so, and he's just not. He's not a bad quarterback. He's a pretty decent quarterback, but this year is a perfect example of why he's not the guy. when the offense is down, your quarterback needs to be able to lead them back into a good position, and Andy Dalton can't do that, especially if you're in prime time. He always fails in prime time, every time. So, Andy Dalton needs to be replaced as well. I'm hoping they do. I don't think they will. I don't see them replacing him. Give me just a moment. Massive apology for that. So yeah, the Water Dragon just decided he was done. Nazi was done, and he just ran across this desk, jumped onto the floor. He was all over the place. So I just put him back into his habitat. I apologize for that. Anyway, as I was saying, Andy Dalton just doesn't seem to be the guy for Cincinnati. He's been with the team for 6-7 seasons now. Is every playoff loss his fault? No. He was even out for the 2015 loss, and A.J. McCarron actually almost led them to a win, which was quite embarrassing. If your backup almost leads them to a win and you couldn't for 5 seasons straight, that's the sign you're just not the guy. And the Bengals ended up signing him for over $100 million. And, I mean, sometimes they have these moments of brilliance where they'll go after the guys they have, and they'll offer them big contracts, and that's cool. Like they offered a big, nice contract to Perfect. They've targeted some of their guys that they had and signed them, but they're signing the wrong guys. That's the problem. Andy Dalton's not the right guy. He's not. I mean, if he hasn't gotten you where you needed to be by now, he's not going to. He's a good guy. If in the right system, he can lead you to the playoffs, maybe a couple wins. And in a perfect situation, maybe a Super Bowl. But he's not going to be the guy you needed him to be. He's not a franchise quarterback. He isn't, and he never will be. Is A.J. McCarron? I don't think so. Or if he is, we haven't seen enough to say so. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy I'm not a Bengals fan. That's all I'll say. I'm happy I'm not a Bengals fan, so I don't have to face all this. But at least this is a good sign for now. Maybe this will spur some change with the Bengals. We'll see. But anyway, the crate we actually have coming, and it's shipping in the next 2 weeks. If you haven't seen any of the subscription crates and like loot crates, stuff like that, I highly recommend you check some of those out. There's a lot of cool ones. Now, I didn't get loot crate just because this one made more sense for me. I'm a big comic book collector, so we're going with, it's called Superhero Crate. And it ships once every month, comes with a t-shirt, comes with some backdated comic books, and other stuff like that. That's a crate we got. It costs like $22 for a monthly supply. Of course, you could do a 3-month supply ahead of time, and it's cheaper that way. This is just the easiest way for me, because I might switch around and do different crates. But we will actually have that unboxing video coming within the next 2 weeks, which is going to be a lot of fun. Other than that, that's really all we got to discuss. We might do a little bit of a setup video on some of our reptiles soon. We'll see. And then we also have a PC video we got to do. But that's about it. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us at AC Everything. Like this video, subscribe, hit that notification bell, hit us up in our social media. It's always in the links below. So hope you have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.